Alright, hello and welcome back to another fan-requested deck profile, and today, as you can tell, I'm just going to try to stop acting like it's a secret. Don't know why I do that, it's in the title. But anyway, as you can see, today we're going to be taking a look at Melodious, however you want to say it. But this is a more interesting one because this is one I was kind of looking at and thinking about building before it was actually requested it, but I was always just thinking about it. I never actually tried to build it. I played against it like once and absolutely hated it when I played against it, but I figured I'd maybe look at it and give it a second chance. But this is also the first fan requested build that I'm actually like, I'm uncertain. This is the most uncertain I've been about one of the builds I've been requested to do, interestingly enough. Just not sure, because there's a lot of different builds. Like I saw, there were a few people who, my research for this, I saw a few people who did a lot of builds, and like not a whole bunch of variations in like the people actually building them, but a whole bunch of variations in build. There's like more of an XYZ, there's a ritual, but the deck does have a fusion focus. It has a card that acts as a poly, it has 3 fusions, so I kind of wanted to go for a fusion build, which I actually found the least amount of info on out of all of them. Like there's a few other ones, like there's the Cyber Angels, because I can search them because they're all fairies. But anyway, enough rambling, let's get into it. Now, we're going to start off with the higher level ones. For one of our one-ofs, we have Mozart, the Melodious Maestra. Its effect is, once per turn, you can special summon 1 light fairy monster from your hand, but you can't special summon other monsters the turn you activate this effect, except for light monsters. So it locks you down a little bit. Now, we're running one of it just because we can send it off of this card here, Ostinato, which is like, if you control a monster, is basically a fusion from your deck. And then we have Call the Haunted, so we can dump that and bring it back with Call the Haunted, which is just another strategy that works for all of our high-level ones here. And also, we can transmodify one of the fusions into it. But it's a good effect, but it's more situational because it depends on you having cards in hand. So we just run the one, and we can go for it whenever we need it. And then for another one of the higher-level ones, we have Shapina, the Melodious Maestra. I know I butchered that name. But it's kind of like a counterpart to the other one, where once per turn, you can target 1 light fairy type monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. And then you cannot activate non-light monster effects during the turn you activate that effect. So they work well in tandem, but there aren't many times where you're going to be getting both of those on the field. But this one is easier to bring out because we are going to be going into level 6 fusions more, and you can transmodify the level 6 fusions into this, then add a card back, and there's a few good plays you can do with that. And then next up we have 2 cards that are the lock of the deck, pretty much. We have Elegy, the Melodious Diva, and Aria, the Melodious Diva. Now, Elegy's effect is, special summon Melodious monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects, and if this face-up card is special summoned, all fairy-type monsters you control gain 300 attack. And that plays well with Aria's effect, which is, while this special summon card is on the field, Melodious monsters you control cannot be targeted by card effects or destroyed by battle. So if you get both of these out, you have a pretty good lockdown where your opponent doesn't have very many options to get over your monsters, like Trish and F-Zero are a few of the more realistic ways there. So one of the main plays of the deck, and I think this is true for pretty much any of the builds, is you want to get both of these 2 monsters out because it locks your opponent down, then you can build up resources from there, and then just kind of explode off from there. And I think that's actually why I'm iffy on this deck, is, I don't know, I just don't like setting up the lock and then waiting. It's not exactly to my style. I believe that's where I'm being very iffy on this build from. But again, this can be transmodified with any of our level 4s, so this is pretty easy to get out. And Aria, we also, that's why we have Summoner Monk. We can ditch it with Call the Haunted off of the Ostinato, so we have our ways of getting it out. The only problem with Aria is that she has to be special summoned, so you can't just normal summon her. And that's basically why we're running both of these at 2, is because you really just want to transmodify for Elegy, and you really just want to Summoner Monk into Aria or Call the Haunted, so you don't want to be drawing into those 2 that much. Moving on from there, we have 3 Canon the Melodious Diva. This is a pretty straightforward one. If you control a Melodious monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only do that once per turn, and once per turn you can target 1 Melodious monster you control, change its battle position. So the main purpose of this card is basically just to give you a few rank 4 plays. So you have like an Aria on field and you're trying to go for game, you really don't need to keep the lockdown out anymore. You can special this, go into rank 4, you still have your normal summon. It just adds a little bit of speed and power to the deck, basically. Moving on from there, we have 3 Soprano the Melodious Songstress. Now, when this card is special summoned, you can target 1 Melodious monster in your graveyard, except itself, and add it to your hand. That's a once per turn, and once per turn you can also fusion summon 1 Melodious fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters you control as the fusion materials. So basically this card gets you some instant poly plays. This works very well with Cannon because you can normal this, special that. There's an instant fusion play right there. Also, the recycling from grave really helps out. Yeah, it works well with Mozarta. It gets you more stuff in hand you can use for your regular polys, and this works very well with a few Levier plays we have in the deck that we'll show off with some replays. We also have 3 Sonata the Melodious Diva. This one is fairly straightforward. If you control a Melodious monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, not once per turn. And while this special summon card is on the field, all fairy type monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. So this basically just gives us gives all of our monsters a little more meat, gives them a little bit more power to swing for game, swing over things, and that actually comes in handy a lot in the deck. It also lets us go for a few rank 3 plays. Say we need a Levy or a Break Sword, or say they stop our Orpheus Scorpio play, we can get this out and still go for a rank 3 play from there. But the 500 boost actually comes in a lot more handy than you'd think. And then we have 2 copies of Summoner Monk, like we've been talking about. It works best with Aria, and that's mostly what you're going to want to be doing. But it also, again, works with Soprano to add one back to hand, then you can poly from there. So Summoner Monk is very strong in the deck overall. And rounding off the monsters, we have the Pride Plant engine with 3 Orpheus Scorpio and 1 Darlingtonia Cobra. Not much explanation needed there. It's a free rank 3 and a poly to hand, which is never a bad thing. Next, we have a very amazing card for the deck. We have Ostinato. It only really works like first turnish though, so or like late game top deck if your field's clear. But anyway, specifics. If you control no monsters, fusion summon 1 Melodious fusion monster from your extra deck using 2 monsters from your hand or deck as fusion materials. During the end phase of this turn, destroy the monster fusion summoned by this effect, and if you do, if all fusion materials that were used for fusion summon are in your graveyard, you can special summon all of them. So this, you could ditch an Aria and an Elegy, special them back, then you have your lock. If not, you could special out one of the fusions that can't be destroyed by card effects. You could special out a fusion, then get your lock with Aria and Elegy, and then the fusion stays, and you have those 2 on field. Get stuff in grave for Call the Haunted. Overall, this card is just very, very strong. Lets you get to your lock instantly, sets up Call the Haunted plays, basically a free fusion, and I definitely think it's a 3-up in the deck. Anytime you resolve this, you have a much greater chance of winning. For our Pride Plant engine, we do run 2 regular polymerization, and we also have the 3 transmodify. Again, we basically talked about how this works in the deck. Overall, creates some very strong plays there. Also, because the deck relies on special summoning, we have 2 Celestial Transformation, which is pretty simple. Special summon 1 fairy type monster from your hand. Its attack is halved and it's destroyed during the end phase. Now that sounds a little iffy, but in this deck, a lot of our stuff can't be destroyed by card effects if we set up our lock, so you can use this pretty much worry-free. It gets your effect on special summon off. Basically, just because of how many monsters you have to special summon for their effects, this card is very strong in the deck. We also have 2 Forbidden Chalice just to turn off any problem cards our opponent may have, like a Harbinger or a Dryden, say. 2 Cosmic Cyclone to clear some back row and make sure that stuff doesn't plus in grave. This card's very good. It has a lot more utility. Say against Invoked, you could banish their fusion and stop them from recurring next turn. Cosmic Cyclone is very strong right now. Also because, again, it's a deck that relies heavily on special summoning for effects. We have our Call the Haunteds, and rounding things off, we have 2 Solemn Strike. After testing with the deck, actually might bump Call the Haunted up to 3 again, but I cut it down to 2 just to keep everything at 40. And keep some space there. Moving on to the extra deck, we have 1 Levier and 1 Break Sword, just some pretty generic targets for the Pride Plant engine. And because we can banish off of this fusion here, Levier gives us some more interesting plays in the deck as well. Also, for some rank 4 plays, we have 1 Fairy Churgirl, 1 Emerald, 1 Giant Hand, 1 Castell, 1 Dark Rebellion, and the Utopia the Lightning package without the middle piece, just because I'd rather have some other stuff in there. And just because it's the most common higher rank that we could probably make, we have 1 M7, although I haven't really found myself going into this card at all. And then moving on to fusions, we have a name that I can't say because I've never actually had to try to say these out loud before recording this. Schuberta the Melodious Maestra, I may have butchered that, I'm not sure. But this one just requires 2 Melodious monsters, and its effect is, during either player's turn, You can target up to 3 cards in any graveyard, banish them, and if you do, this card gains 200 attack for each, and it can only be used once while this card is face up on the field. So this is the one that's gonna let us go for some Leviair plays. But we'll get into some of those plays in the replays because it's a lot easier to show than to explain. We also have 2 copies of Bloom Diva the Melodious Choir. Now this one requires 1 Melodious Maestro monster and 1 Melodious monster. Now our targets for the Maestro monsters are this fusion here and these 3 up there, but again it's not really hard to get to them, especially with Ostinato. But its effect is, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Also, you take no battle damage from attacks involving this card. So basically, you could make this with Ostinato and just not have to worry about it during the end phase, it just wouldn't be destroyed. Also, if it battles a special summon monster, after damage calculation, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the difference between the original attack of that opponent's monster and this card, and if you do, destroy that opponent's monster. So, no matter how high the attack of an opponent's monster, if it can be destroyed, this thing can just swing into it, deal some damage, and then destroy it, which is why we're running it 2, just because it lets you get over a few things and helps you stall out a little bit. And finally, we have 1 copy of Bloom Prima the Melodious Choir. This is the same summoning requirements as the last one, but its effect is, this card gains 300 attack for each fusion material used for its fusion summon. This card can make a second attack during each battle phase. If this fusion summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 Melodious monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. That's the one I find myself going into the least, but it does help you push for OTKs as it's at least 2,500 damage on field, so it's at least 5k if your opponent has an open field, so this one can really help you push for OTKs. But anyway, that's about it for explaining the deck. Again, I'm iffy on this one. I'm not really sure how well I did. I guess we'll see when this goes up. But yeah, I'm not too sure on this one, and I think I know I probably messed up a lot in the replays, and there were probably some better plays that I could be going for. But anyway, let's get into those replays now. Alright, so getting into our first one here. We're against Dinos, although the player makes a lot of weird plays that seems as if they were just getting used to the deck, and as you can see, they only have 1 card in their X deck, which is 1 copy of VFD. So, really not sure how valid this duel is, especially because we will see him summon the Tuner, despite only having VFD in his extra deck. But anyway, let's get this one rolling here. So he's going to start off with a set of a whole bunch. He's going to set the baby, which can't get effect off of battle anyway, and 2 strikes and a Call the Haunted. So we're not going to be playing just a little bit. Now we're going to start off, obviously we drew the Orpheus Scorpio for turn, but we still have the Darlingtonia Cobra. But we do have an easy rank 4 play right here, so I was kind of hoping that this would get destroyed, sent to the grave, then we could normal summon, special summon, make an Emerald, and recycle the Darlingtonia Cobra, and then have our Orpheus Scorpio live. So that's what I was kind of hoping for there, was just to be able to recycle this and then go off and grab our Poly, but that plan's not going to come to fruition. So let's get rolling again. We are going to pop the, not pop, but destroy the baby. And he's going to Call the Haunted back, weirdly enough, even though he doesn't really have anything in hand there. And as you can see, he's going to go for the Aolo, but it's just going to get destroyed during the end phase anyway. And obviously, he's not going to sink for 3, so that was a very interesting play. It just seems like he was just getting used to the deck. But as you can see, we don't have a spell. This is dead. We can't summon that yet. And another dead Summoner Monk. So we're just going to go for, not really a rank 4 play here, but just kind of pushing for damage. And then we could go for a rank 4 after. But the second one's going to get Solemn Striked. Although, I don't know why he wouldn't wait for the rank 4, because then he'd be able to get both of those off the field once I summon whatever the rank 4 was. But again, this wasn't the best duel, really. So we're going to swing over that, deal 14, pass over to him. And he's going to get a Lost World here, which is where things get more interesting, because now we have to play around the stupid restrictions that come along with those tokens. So we're going to lose our Darlingtonia Cobra there, which is fine by me. And we're going to draw Ostinato, but it's dead because we do control monsters. So we're going to null summon the Summoner Monk and try to ditch that. But he's going to Solemn Strike it. Interestingly, he's not going to wait for the ditch. So again, this player didn't seem that good. So we're still going to have that in hand next turn for this Summoner Monk. So we're just going to change to defense and pass. He's going to top deck the Tuner he can't use. Make a token, swing at the token, obviously go for some dinosaur shenanigans here. Interestingly, he's going to send a baby to grave instead of like adding, say, a superconductor to hand, which he obviously could have summoned. But again, I just need to stop explaining this guy's bad plays because they're bad. So we're going to lose our last Melodious monster and just have a token here. So now we're just going to go basically for a standard play here. We're going to ditch, go for Aria, and then special to get our stuff back up to its usual attacks, and have them not be able to be destroyed by battle. So now the only things he can destroy are his own token and Summoner Monk. And I do want to get those off field as soon as possible. Opal, yes. Also, I'm hoping for a tribute summon here, which we are going to get off, because interestingly, he's not going to swing over the Summoner Monk. I mean, even if we can't tribute it, like, he still should have swung over that anyway. So we're going to draw a Solemn Strike. We're going to tribute the token and one of our Melodious monsters, which we'll then add back to hand special again. And at this point, we have enough power to start getting over some stuff. So we are going to swing over a lot of those, and we have half of our lock here with Aria, and we're going to set the strike. Now, he just has a Lost World and another Terraforming in hand, so he's just going to scoop there because he can't do anything, and we're going to swing it for game. So that just shows you, like, a little bit of, even if you're behind, you can just kind of set up. Like, obviously, this wasn't the best showing of it just because we were playing against something pretty bad. But if you're behind, you can set up your lock and try to wait there and build up resources to be able to slowly kind of push over what they have as you build up resources behind your lock. Alright, so getting into another one here. We're going second against, looks like kind of like PK Lights one, I guess. And he's going to search a sword, set a Dark Gauntlets, which is pretty bad, and set a Fog Blade as well. So because he added the sword, I knew he probably already had a Fog Blade in hand, so I know there's probably a sword and a Fog Blade down. So we're going to draw for turn. We're going to get the Ostinato, which is, that is fantastic right there. So we're going to go for the name. We're going to go for this one, we'll just call it, because obviously since he's playing a deck that has a whole bunch of pluses in grave, I want to get all those cards out of grave. So we're going to go for this so that we can banish some of those cards from grave. So we're going to banish all three of those, go for our Celestial Transformation to special that, which will let us add the Aria back to hand. We can then transmodify into the Elegy and have our field not be able to be destroyed by card effects, which is pretty good. We have some bodies and they have some protection right here. And then we're just going to normal summon the Aria to go for a little bit of damage. Wish I could have been able to special it, but I couldn't. So now that's going to draw out the Fog Blade on his Raiden because he's hoping to survive. But we're going to hit that with Cosmic Cyclone. Now here, he's going to chain that and send a Fog Blade, which that doesn't matter, it's bad. Now here, I knew he had the sword, but I misclicked on attack, and the game won't let you click out of an attack once you've already tried to declare it, even if you haven't declared a target. So I had to go through with that and lose my Aria, but that was just a misclick there. But then we'll swing over it again, and get it off field. So he just has that left in hand. And then again, that was, Ostinato tried to destroy that during the end phase, but because of LG, it can't be destroyed by card effects, so we're going to get to keep that instead. Now he's just going to normal a Minerva and hope, I guess. A crappy Minerva, not, $1,000 Minerva. But we're going to get Transmodify. So, because this is what I was talking about earlier, where we wanted to get stuff out of his grave. So we're actually going to Transmodify our Fusion for the Shapina to add back the Soprano, which can act as a poly. Normal summon that and go for this all over again to get some more stuff out of his grave. So we're going to get off his traps out of there so we can't do any special summoning. And then push for a little bit more damage here, leaving him with 18. And we still have a Solemn Strike face down. Now he's going to go for the gloves, go for the cloak, I believe that is. And then he's just going to scoop from there, as I guess he really didn't have any recovery. He didn't have a boot, so we couldn't really make a play. But that just shows you a little bit of the cheeky plays you can do with Transmodify there. Alright, so getting into this one, looks like we're going against Phantom Spiral here, although it does have some interesting choices, like this Champion's Vigilance here. I mean, I'd just go for Solemn Strike personally, but to each their own. So he's going first. He's just going to normal summon the Alexandrite Dragon and set up the Phantom Spiral Battle, which is just basically like a Raigeki break without discarding, and then a Champion's Vigilance, which is dead right now. So we're going to draw for turn. We're set up pretty good here, so we're going to go for the Ostinato and then the Shuberta, just because we have the Orpheus Scorpio, so we're going to go for a little bit of Levier shenanigans here because I was planning to banish the Aria and then special it back with our Levier, but that's actually going to get hit with the Spiral Battle and get popped. I always forget Levier is level 4 or lower, although I realized it the second I clicked on this. But obviously, yeah, we can't special that back off of Levier, but that's what I was thinking, so I am going to banish one, although obviously that should have stayed in grave. Now, because it just has one, we're going to Cosmic Cyclone it. But we still have the Orpheus Scorpio play, so we still do have the main play here. As you can see, we ditched the Aria, so it's engraved to be banished and special back. So we still have our main play, it's just going to take up more resources than I would have liked it to. So we'll grab the Poly, we'll activate that, banish the Aria and 2 of his, or Aria, Cosmic Cyclone, and his only card engraved to boost up our Schuberta, go into a Leviair, and then special back our Aria. So we have a nice field here. With just these, we're going to push for some damage and pass it back over to him, although he's not looking too great. He's going to top deck a Trade-In, which will let him draw 2 more, activate the Spiral Field spell, but for that to do anything, we actually have to activate some cards or effects. So I'm just going to decide to not do anything and just push for game here, and we're going to win there. So this one is really just to show off the some of the cheeky Leviair plays you can make in the deck with the Predapline engine. Alright, so getting into our last one here, we're against what looks like True King Yang Zings up here, although he doesn't open super well there. Dead Path and some dead stuff in hand. Obviously, the only live card he has is Twin Twisters. So we're going to draw a Sonata, and we're actually looking pretty good here. We can make some fusion plays, so we're going to go ahead and normal summon that, special that. We're going to push for damage first, and then go for a fusion main phase 2. We are going to go for a Schuberta here. This one for that, obviously it's the only one we can make off of these two, but also it's decent against certain matchups because you can banish from their grave during any time, so it's alright to sit on, but not the best play. And then we're just going to set our Strike and our Cyclone and pass, but they're going to get blown out end phase with the Ditch of the Path. Now he's going to draw another Gamma-Seal for turn, so he's just going to tribute over ours and pass it back over, but I'm not having none of that shit, so we're going to tribute right over the Gamma-Seal, and this is Photon Lead. This was in an earlier build, but the only difference is I swapped out Photon Lead for the Celestial Transformation, just because it's better in the deck. But this is basically the exact same thing. It should act the same way. So we're going to go ahead for that to get our Soprano back, which will let us add 1 back from Gray. We'll special that, and that'll be enough damage for a game. So oddly, also if your opponent has an open field, you can use some interesting OTK plays here. Just because I have a lot of the cards can special themselves. And obviously you have things like Call the Haunted, well it is 2, so it's Call the Haunted, Celestial Transformation, so you can do a little bit of OTK here, and that's really what this last one was to show off. Alright, so that's it for my Melodious deck profile for the day. Again, I'm iffy on this one, so I'm not sure how well this one works, I'm sure how well it works, I'm just not sure this one is stacking up against a few other decks, few other builds out there, but I did want to go for the fusions, so I chose to play this build over, say, the Rituals or the XYZ heavy ones. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you later.